How do you watch it?
Cora. Yo, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy 3Stacks in this thing, baby. Representing Team Kings of Games, and I'm gonna be showcasing you guys a deck that I ended up enjoying so much. Like I just ended up loving this deck. I've been lately liking like really cool decks. I love my onesie pajama baby prank kids, my pirates, my plunders. And now I'm rocking with like dragon maids. I'm testing out like different archetypes. Trying out like Buster Blader. Like Evil Eye. Just like all these different cool archetypes that really are slept on. And I mean, I know it's like a repeated phrase. I'm pretty sure like a lot of people say a lot of decks are slept on, but it's still true. I'm just reinforcing the statement. Like with Dragon Maids, the deck I'm talking about now, I did not know it was this good. And these cards are just incredible, you guys. So I'm gonna get into this because I have a lot to talk about. And now, as I told you guys, I'm more than likely doing dual videos separate from the deck profile, so the video is not like an hour long plus, for the sake of your attention spans. So going straight into the list, because honestly this deck is really good. I'll talk about some like huge interactions that are crucial for this deck for you to make it work, because a deck like this you have to play it extremely adequate. Oh, somebody's calling me a messenger. Extremely adequate, and skillful to be able to pull off W's with this kind of deck. You're gonna have to work a little bit harder for your wins versus like a deck like Adamancipator, and Infernoble, stuff like that, where you just memorize the combos, and then as long as you could full combo and your opponent doesn't have a hand trap, you're in a pretty good position. But with this deck, you gotta have a lot more speculation, hindsight, patience, and also at the same time, you have to really understand the meta. That's the thing with playing rogue decks in general. Anytime you play a rogue deck, you really have to know the meta. Because a lot of the times when people top with rogue, it's because it was a good meta call. And so I'm going to explain the list and all that, but I think it's really important for you guys to keep that in mind. So like when playing this deck, you got to learn your combos, but also start creating your own combos. Start thinking of combos like what happens when you get hand trapped, things of that nature, and find contingencies and backups. So I'm going to get into the list. There's a lot to talk about, like I said. So starting off with 3 Dragon Maid Larper. So something that I noticed, I'm not saying I'm the only one, sure somebody might have noticed, but I have not seen a deck profile of Dragon Maids where anybody talked about the names. So obviously you can tell that this is Parlor's Dragon, but I'm gonna go even further. That's why I said there's a lot to talk about. If you look at the name Parlor, so we're gonna look at Larper, right? You see Parlor, you can tell by the artwork that's her dragon form. Like, this is her dragon form. The Dragon Maids are dragons. So look at the name Parlor Dragon Maid. Now look at Dragon Maid Parlor. I mean Larper. Take P-A-R and L-O-R, combine them in a different order, and you have literally Parlor Dragon Maid. But instead it's Dragon Maid Larper. So that's how you're also gonna know whose dragon form is whose, because their names. Like with Dragon Maid, Kitchen Dragon Maid, if you look at Tinkek, look at and rearrange the lettering. Like, I'm not saying I'm the only one, but just to point it out, people didn't notice, Kitchen is in this name. Rearrange the words. Take the K, put the I in together, and put the T after that, and you have Kitchen. You can spell Kitchen off of Tinkek. But anyways, you guys are probably wondering why I play 3 Larpers, because basically this card really helps me pushing going second. This deck has a really good amount of critical mass. It generates a lot of +1s, +2s, +3s, a lot of follow-ups, a lot of contingencies, backup plans. Its recovery is insane. Its its ability to generate advantage and go critical mass swarming the field is amazing, that you can break this deck's board and it can remake it over and over and over. And a lot of the swarming can happen on your opponent's turn, so you get like a main phase 3 with this deck. It's like, it feels like prank hits and shit alls because of how much you play on your opponent's turn, on each standby, special summoning multiple times on each standby, during your opponent's main phase, during their in phase, so much swarming you could do. But anyways, the reason why I'm playing 3 is because I love you, baby. The reason why I'm playing 3 is because this card does bait and negate going second. So like a lot of the times when you have fragile hands, your normal summon being interrupted when you don't have an extender like Guard Dragon or Hospitality, you can't really push past the normal summon. You need to have like, the only way you can extend if the normal summon gets interrupted is if you have like Earnest, if you have the Fusion Spell, Hospitality, or Guard Dragon. So you have ways, and as you see, I incorporated multiple ways to make sure I can push past that, because that could be a choke point. Because you could get a lot of things started up if your normal summon resolves, but if it doesn't, you need backups. So Larper helps to bait Savage, bait Arclight, bait any negates, really, any monster effect negates. You could just discard it, target that monster. Its effects cannot activate on this field. People really sleep on this effect. When I say that, it's because I haven't personally seen a list that played 3 Lorpers. You know, people play 3 Ernest, that's true, but like this card is exceptional. Both this and Ernest, honestly, both of them respectively, not only are they valid targets for you to be able to summon a Dragonmaid shell, which we'll get into the reason why I know that that's actually House Dragonmaid's dragon form, but they allow you to push past that normal summon breakpoint, where if your normal summon gets interrupted and it can't resolve, you could use Ernest's effect to extend, or you just start your turn off by activating Lorper to target an Arclight or a Savage. If they don't negate Lorper's effect, guess what? They can't negate anything for the rest of the turn because they cannot activate their effects for the rest of this turn while face up on the field. So this card is really, really strong. I actually like this as a 3-up. It's really good. Like I said, it lets you bait negates, which is really strong. The fact that your archetype specific cards can already break boards is really good. And then you have like generic staples that help you push past a lot of choke points, because I know this deck's choke points. You know, there's a lot of critical like thinking that comes to this deck, and it's more skillful than you think. This is a big brain deck. It really is. And a lot of the times when your opponent doesn't know how to play against this deck, you don't have to worry about the choke points because they normally hand trap the wrong thing. But when an opponent starts to understand, they learn your choke points, and this is a card that helps you push past that. Next up, we play Tinkek. Like I said, if you really look at it, this is Kitchen's Dragonmaid form, her dragon form, and then take the wording Tinkek, rearrange it. I promise you, K-I-N, basically look at Kitchen, K-I-T-C-H-E-N, and then look at the letters for Tinkek. You can find K-I-T-C-H-E-N in that. That's Kitchen. This is Kitchen form. And it's on the name, literally in the card, you know, and it away too. So this is her dragon form. So basically, all the high-level dragons that I play help you to push, because even this, being able to give one of your Dragon Maids a 2,000 plus boost, you can attack over Savage, you can attack over Arclight, you can attack over Emperor Charles, you know, you could just beat over, just think of any threat, you know, you could just beat over threatening monsters that are really in the way, you know, it's just really, really strong, like this card, as well as Lorper, and also the Ernest, which I play as a 3-up. The reason why I like this, and I'll go ahead and just give it away to Nerf's Dragonmaid, which is, I feel she's the cutest one. I told my wife this is her, definitely. Just to me, like I look at all their art, Chamber's not that cute, honestly. It's hard to even see her cuteness. She's got a dark little appeal to her. But like, you know, Kitchen, if you like redheads, and then like Parlor, you know, she's kind of thick, honestly. If you look at Parlor, she's thick. But honestly, Nurse is the cutest one, and that's my wife. And if you guys look at Ernest, so I'll just take the words right now. N-U-R-S-E. Nurse is in the name. So like these are just little things that people might not notice, but I noticed these. And like I noticed this by myself. So like Ernest is a turn 0 play. It's not like Emperor Multifaker, but think of it in that way where you get to start your plays on your opponent's turn. So even if you open cloggy multiples of like Parlor or Kitchen or Chamber, you can resolve one on your opponent's turn, and then when you start your turn, you can resolve another one on your turn. And that gets you really far ahead. When you search for your changeover on your opponent's turn off Chamber, you're already starting off being able to bait 2 negations, because you can activate this, and if it gets negated, you bounce the Chamber that you summon on your opponent's turn back to hand, and then you activate it again. And if they still negate that, you still have the potential to normal summon Chamber, search for another copy of Changeover, and then activate it again. So you just bait so many negates when you have a good hand with this deck. So Ernest really helps you to push past the normal summon choke point of this deck. So getting into the maids now, Chamber, I have not seen her dragon form, so this gives me an indication that there's going to be another fusion monster potentially for this deck, or another main deck Dragonmaid monster, because it doesn't make sense for her to not have a dragon form. And if you guys are curious, Sho is not her dragon form. Sho is House's dragon form. How do I know? It's in the name. It gives it off. Take H-O-U-S-E, rearrange that, and that's the name of House. That's how you know it's their dragon form, because of the name and the artwork. So you don't even have to guess. And honestly, it's pretty common sense, because you can just look at the artwork and tell. But we don't have a Dragonmaid form for it yet. That leads me to think that there's still more support coming for this deck. Chamber, in my opinion, is the best Dragonmaid. Like to normal summon. I think second best is Parlor, because Parlor is I'm just gonna say Parlor, honestly. Sometimes Parlor is Parlor can do both what Kitchen and Chamber does. That because oftentimes, you know, using Parlor, you just dump cards, change over. I do play a lot more Dragon Maid traps than most people do because I play pure, not Dragon Link, not Rocket Chamber, you know, like literally Dragon Maids. But like Parlor, honestly, she's the most flexible because she can do what Kitchen and Chamber do to an extent. But I think Chamber's the best one because she's a self-contained one-card combo that bare minimum in low resources, if you don't have nothing else, she's a one-card Heretic Seal. Heretic Seal in this deck, when I get to that, that card is just bonkers in this deck. It's so good. So Chamber's like the best, you guys. By herself, she does stuff. Like Parlor has to have more cards in your hand to be able to interact with for her to be good. The same with Kitchen. You need more cards in your hand to be able to interact with. But Chamber by herself is a self-contained one-card combo that gets you follow-up so you can snowball. It gets you an interrupt plus a follow-up. And trust me when I say, do not underestimate what Heretic Seal of Heavenly Spheres can do. That card baits 2 negates by itself. It's crazy. So moving past Chamber, she's insane. Oh yeah, one more thing I want to point out to you guys, because like honestly, I'm not saying I'm a pro Dragon Maid player, but honestly, I learned this deck really fast. And when I say fast, I picked up on so many skillful big brain interactions by myself practicing fast. She summons any level 7 or higher Dragon Maid from your hand or your graveyard for her battle phase tag out. Also keep in mind, every battle phase tag out is going to be a +1 to 2. The reason why they're +1s to 2, that's what I meant by like this deck gives a lot of follow-ups. You know, you're being able to always have contingencies and follow-ups, and you get so many +1s and 2s throughout the duel. Adding cards back to your hand is insane because you can reuse them. Their normal summon or special summon, they trigger their effects. So being able to bounce them to reuse them again is crazy, especially if you didn't use them that turn. You're bouncing them in the hand to summon a dragon, and then at the end of the battle phase, you're going to summon them and trigger their effect. So it's just so much snowballing. But she summons a level 7 or higher. That's why, again, she is the best Dragon Maid, honestly, because she summons show and house. As long as they were properly summoned and they're in the grave, she summons a level 7 or higher Dragon Maid monster. These are level 7 or higher Dragon Maids. So she literally snowballs, she can snowball by herself in your mid to late game past turn 1. She just, being able to resummon Dragon Maid show is just insane. That is insane, you guys. That is so powerful, including with House. And there's so many interactions with House. House is like crazy strong. This deck's so good, you guys. Like, if you think it's bad, you just don't know how to play it right. Because this deck really is, in my opinion, a tier 2 deck. And I have dual videos to prove it. I played against decent meta decks, you know, and there were players that really knew what they were doing, and I still caught W's. So Chamber is really, like I was saying, just keep in mind the ability to bounce, like I'm reminding you. She can summon pretty much anything you want as far as a higher level dragons go. Any dragon form in your fusion. Moving forward, in my opinion, of the best 3, she's the worst. Kitchen. The only reason why I say that is because unless you have another Dragon Maid monster in your hand, she's normally just going to act as a Parlor, foolish burying one of your Dragon Maid monsters. Don't get me wrong, she's still really strong. And problem that she solves is when you don't have higher level Dragon Maids, she gets you access to those, because that's how changeover fusions into show in the first place. And I already explained whose Dragon forms who, and the name is literally there so you can tell. But like, so she also is a foolish, and she is a +1. Every single Dragon Maid on normal summon is going to be a +1 to 2. So she's a +1 to 2 in the sense that you can get a card that you need, into your grave, and at the start of your battle phase, bounce her back to hand, and then summon that you dumped. So just by herself, self-contained, she can basically just dump any one of the level 8s, because you know she only summons level 8s. And then at the start of battle phase, bounce her to hand and summon them. So now she replaced herself. So you got a +1 because you got a dragon on field and you got her in hand. She also by herself sets you up for changeover. So just her and changeover by themselves can still summon show as long as you have a battle phase that turn and you don't get your battle phase turn 1. So this is not a turn 1 play. Moving forward, we play 3 copies of Parlor. Parlor, I feel honestly, like, Chamber is just so much more superior because of her being a self-contained one-card combo and also being able to summon your fusions. But I really would say I'm really back and forth between Chamber because honestly, sometimes I feel like Parlor is the best one because she does, the reason why I say that, she does what Kitchen does, right? Kitchen can foolish burial a Dragon Maid, right? So can Parlor, except she sends any Dragon Maid card. So the reason why I said she does what Kitchen and Chamber does, because she can dump changeover, you can add it to hand, she can dump Cards like Hospitality, you can recur it with Welcome. Yes, I am that player that plays Welcome, and I'll explain that when we get there. She can dump Downtime, add it back, or she can even dump Cleanup to get its graveyard effect. And also keep in mind that she does get you valid targets, so she also dumps the higher level Dragon Maids, so you can bounce her back to hand and summon those. Also, she even dumps Nurse, so that you can get extended plays to go Hospitality for Nurse, dump Earnest, and then Nurse separate chain, special summon, like for example Chamber's effect, you know. So like you just start to snowball a lot and get so many +1s, +2s, +3s. This deck is so good with resource management, maintenance, just the ability to just have so many follow-ups is what makes this deck so good. It's really hard to outgrind this deck. In fact, in my luxury gaming rogue tournaments, I'm probably gonna start playing Dragon Maid. This is a really good rogue contender. So moving past that, for hand traps, I play just 3 Ash and 3 Imperm, you know, kind of just like universally gonna be good in every matchup. And then I play 1 Nurse. Like I said, this is my wife. I told her, which one do you want to be? She didn't really decide. I was like, I would say your Parlor because you're so thick, but honestly, I'm gonna say Nurse is my wife because my wife is beautiful, and Nurse is the most pretty Dragon Maid ever, you know, that I see. I look at Kitchen, like, if you like Redhead, she is fine, don't get me wrong, all 3 of them, except like maybe Parlor. Sometimes you look at her and be like, yeah, she's for an acquired taste, you know, you gotta have like a specific taste. But honestly, for me, if you look at Nurse, you can never say she's ugly. She is fine, okay? She's fine. So, Nurse is really good. She's an extender. I chose to summon her off Guard Dragons instead of playing Red Eyes Darkness Metal. Not saying the card's bad. That card's great. It's a really good card. But I find myself summoning Nurse off the Dragon Maid, the Guard Dragon combos, because she's just so good. And once you get her in rotation, now, every standby when you're resolving Show and House, you extend so much. You go Nurse off of Show, Nurse effect, summon Chamber or Parlor, get their effect. You can use Parlor. This is how much you can extend on your opponent's standby. Summon Nurse, summon Parlor, Parlor's effect, summon Cleanup, Cleanup effect, summon Chamber. You just summoned like 3 times on your opponent's standby. That's crazy. That's why I said, like, this deck is like a main phase 3. You play so much on your opponent's turn. It's so crazy, so good, so fun. You're so hard to OTK because if your opponent doesn't use a bunch of spot removal effects to kill all 3 of the Dragon Maids you summon, if you got all 4, you're just nice. If they don't kill them at the start of battle phase, they're gonna tag themselves out back to your hand, giving you follow-ups, because once they're in your hand, you can summon them again later on, and they're gonna summon gigantic monsters that can't be destroyed by card effects, because you're gonna have a fusion more often than not. And then, just at the end of battle phase, if you haven't resolved any one of your Dragon Maids, you could resummon Kitchen, get her effect. You know, just extend so much on your opponent's turn. So now for some staples, before I talk about the Dragon Maid spells and traps, because they're honestly the best spells and traps in this deck, I'm going to talk about generic staples that help me to push past my choke points, mitigate for a lot of weaknesses, and you know, sometimes these cards just help me to push through hand traps and negate. So, 3 talents, 3 droplets, 3 call by grave. So basically, the talents, droplets, and the callbacks help me to push through both negates and hand traps. 3 stacks, how does call by help you push through negates? Because Herald of the Arclight is a card. It exists, and people play that card. The moment they use Arclight against you, you activate call by, target the Arclight. Now, if your opponent doesn't use another Omni negate on the Arclight on the call by, basically now your effect's gonna resolve, and you bait it out and negate with the call by. That's why call by I feel is still good, especially in this deck, because sometimes starting up, you have weaker hands where you didn't open Guard Dragon or Hospitality, even though that's 6 extenders. You didn't open those and you didn't hard draw changeover. I'll explain why I play 2, because a lot of people just play 1 and they're so adamant on it, but I have my own reasons because I really am prepared for a lot of scenarios. So like when you don't have those extenders, your normal summon being Ash Blossomed or Impermed, you know, can be really problematic. For Imperm, there's not much you can do, you know, unless you're going second and your opponent has monsters, then you could chain Droplet and make them miss their target. That's why Droplet still helps you to push through hand traps, because it plays through Gamma and Imperm and Ghost Ogre in the sense that, well, not really Ghost Ogre, you don't have to worry about that, but Gamma and Imperm in the sense that when you're going second, when you're pushing through your opponent's board of interrupts and they activate an Imperm or Gamma and they catch you off guard, you can chain Droplet to get that card off the field so that its effect now resolves and you negate one of your opponent's cards. So if your opponent's really nice and they have like Savage, Arclight, and like Imperm, they're like, I activate Imperm, I'm saving my negates, and now you're like, you know what? you know, like let's say like Arclight's not there, because you can't droplets with Arclight, but like if you baited enough negates and now you're just activating droplets, you could chain droplets, make them miss their imperm target, and force out the Savage to a sense where if you send a monster, now he can't negate. So you're literally taking care of 2 threats, and your effect is still resolving. That's why droplets is so insane. That's why every deck I can main deck this card, I'm going to main deck it, because it's so skillful. It's such a skillful card. It has so many big brain interactions where it's just so good. It's reactive. It's it can be even proactive. It's offensive. It's defensive. You can even use it aggressively to go for an OTK, halving all your opponent's monsters in damage step, and then using Kitchen's Dragon Form to give one of your cards a 2000 boost. You OTK without access, Code Talker. So I explained call by and droplet, you know, hitting like Ash is prevalent. Talents works the same exact way. If your opponent hand traps you, you can draw 2. If your hand's already decent where you can push past a hand trap, because honestly, this deck can really push. When you have a good hand, you can push past multiple hand traps. Multiples. Like if you have Hospitality and Guard Dragon, plus like any one of your good 3, like Kitchen, Parlor, or Chamber, you're absolutely playing through multiple hand traps. So with talents, if you're going first, your opponent hand traps you, you do the standard. If your hand's good, rip the next card out their hand to make sure that your next play that you follow up with can't be hand trapped. If your hand, you know, if you're going second and your opponent like has, you know, Dragoon of the Red Eyes. This is a great example, Dragoon of the Red Eyes. That's why Droplet and Talents also are insane when Dragoon comes out. But anyways, like Droplet's already stocks Dragoon. So like if your opponent has like Savage or Dragoon or Arclight, whatever it is, you know, they negate an effect. You activate Talents. You now use the effect. If your hand's bad, you try to draw 2. If your hand's good, you take control of one of their monsters. What this is going to do is either A, bait a negate, or B, if the negates are baited, you're going to take that daggone Dragoon from them, and you're going to pop their monsters with their Dragoon. So this card is just going to be insane when Dragoon comes out. But the thing is, like I said, droplets, talent, and call by help me to push through hand traps and negates. That's really important for this deck. So I have 3 Earnest and 3 Law Purse, plus those 9 staples that really help me with the big weaknesses of this deck when you have a weaker hand. So I have to explain that because people might just look at it at the face value. When I say face value, it's just they're like, oh, it just does what it does. It's talent, it's droplet, it just negates it. No, bro, you have to really think about what these cards do in a universal standpoint and how much they help you. So these cards both help me and hurt my opponent. Now, I've talked about all those. I'm going to talk about basically the Dragonmaid spells and traps. So the reason why I played 2 changeovers, because I'm really scared of Wakeru, and also I really think that when you don't have access to this card, you can't really play this deck effectively, because without getting out House or her Dragon Form, you really don't have that many follow-ups or interrupts, and you can't really swarm the field on your opponent's turn the way you normally do. So, oh yeah, and by the way, if I didn't already explain, my fan's running in the background. I'm not turning it off because it's hot in Las Vegas. It's like triple digits. So, I'm scared of Wakeru in the Eldritch matchup. Which, honestly, you got to be ready for that. Because if your opponent banishes this, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be really hard to win that duel now. You're going to have to literally rely on using Chamber to summon out Show from Graveyard if you have one. That's going to be your only way now to be able to play with your fusion monsters. So that's one of the reasons why I play 2. The other reason why is because actually hard drawing this card is really good. So just having the second one not only plays around the Wakeru matchup, because if Eldritch is smart, they'll banish this, but also having the second one is really important because hard drawing this card is insane. And now being able to search another copy comes up too, because you'll have it engraved where you've already used the graveyard effect, you activated it, you know, if you're baiting negates, and your opponent still negates that. Now the second one comes in handy in the sense that you can summon Chamber now and use her effect to search the second copy. So it's really, really good because like Parlor already dumps it, you use its effect from grave to bounce, activate it, your opponent negates it, and you're like, dang, now it's stuck in the grave. Then you can summon Chamber, search your second copy, so it also helps with the problem of pushing through negates going second. So you guys are tripping if you're going to say playing 2 is bad. Next up, 3 Hospitalities. This card's insanity. It's a Foolish Burial and an Extender built in one. And also keep in mind, any of your swarming effects that summon from graveyard, this does not target, this does not target, this does not target, this does not target, neither does House. She doesn't target basically the effect of special. She only targets the monster, but the special summon doesn't target neither the Show. So when your opponent's trying to call by the grave or Wakeru in the Eldritch matchup, they have to just guess. They have to literally play musical chairs, not literally, but you know what I'm saying, musical chairs on what card to banish, because they don't know what you're going to summon. So this is even better as an extender than the World Legacy Guard Dragon. Then I play one Welcome. You guys would think I'm crazy for playing this. This card's crazy. The attack boost comes up. The effect Engrave comes up. I dump this off Parlor, so now my opponent can't activate Imperm. If you're playing against Altergeist, they can't target your cards. It's really strong. It helps you out a whole lot. Dumping this for its graveyard effect. Its best effect, in my opinion, is to add a Dragonmaid card from your graveyard to hand. That's so powerful. That helps me to grind. So when this deck gets Welcome set up, and honestly, I'll just talk about Guard Dragon real quick before I get to the last cards. Guard Dragon is just insane. It's an extender by nature, and also it allows you to push past, like, so if Parlor or Chamber or Kitchen get hand trapped by like Ash or Imperm, not Gamma, obviously, then you can link them off in an Almirage, activate Guard Dragon, summon them, summon LP, move LP zone. Now Guard Dragon lets you push through a hand trap that's not Gamma. So it's really, really strong just having this as an extender also, because it lets you go into your Guard Dragon combo even if your opponent has like the Ash or the Imperm or the Veiler. You know, Gamma's different because it leaves the field, so now you have to have Hospitality and Guard Dragon. So by having Hospitality and Guard Dragon, you can push through the second hand trap and get through to the third, because like you'll be able to go like Hospitality for another monster, and if your opponent has the second hand trap for the effect, let's say they have Ash and Imperm, they Imperm Chamber, now you can activate Guard Dragon, and you can do the Guard Dragon combo after you play through both Ash, Blossom, and Imperm, which is really good. So yeah, this card's just insane, you guys. So I was talking about Welcome, you know, I explained how good. So you guys are going to think I'm crazy probably for playing this. You guys might think it's bad to play pure Dragonmaids. I like pure. So cleanup and downtime. So the reason why these three 1-ups are so powerful in this deck to help with the grind is honestly, when you get all three of these in rotation, you can outgrind Eldritch, you can even outgrind Altergeist, and that's really sad to say that like Eldritch, Altergeist, and Shaddolls, and Salads, some of the best recurable decks in the metagame in my personal opinion, you can outgrind them. How? 3 stacks? How do you even do that? How is that even possible? Well, every turn you're going to add from your graveyard to your hand. Every single turn you're going to be able to bounce, because you're going to be able to recur the cleanup with Welcome. So you're adding a Dragonmaid from your field to your hand, and also keep in mind this is an interrupt that plays around Dark Ruler, you know, Droplets, Imperm, anything that negates your or stops your show from resolving, you still have an interrupt, which is really cool. Also keep in mind, if you activate Show's effect to negate and your opponent chains Droplets, you can chain Cleanup to bounce your show, and it'll resolve to its effect to negate, which is really cool. You just won't be able to like resolve the rest, like the whole negate the activation, and if you do destroy that card, also after that return this card to X. You know, like you still get to negate, because like it's not like a whole basically. It says right here, negate the activation, and if you do destroy that card, also after that, you know, so you in my opinion, you should still be able to resolve show, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But either way, the main point is just that cleanup is an interrupt that plays around Dark Ruler, and you know, like Droplets, things of that nature. Also, the fact that it's an interrupt that your opponent can't like really hand trap, because it's a trap, so they can't really like activate like, you know, Chalice, Imperm, you know, Gamma, or Ghost Ogre. It's an interrupt plus a follow-up. How is it a follow-up? Because it targets the dragon you control and returns it to the hand, and one card your opponent controls are in their grave, which is really, really good. It bounces it to their hand. And then next up, downtime. So like this card's really strong. It's an interrupt by itself. It's just a bounce, which is really strong because it doesn't destroy. And trust and believe, this card, because like it's so powerful, your opponent will be caught off guard by this. They can go into a combo and they're like, I summon Warlord Savage. Then you're like, clean up, target it, bounce it. Now you just took care of Savage, which is crazy. But that's just one of the many big brain interactions with this card. Also, its graveyard effect is an extended play, so you can use Parlor on your opponent's standby to summon off of show, dump this. Now if your opponent has a Kaiju for this, or if they destroy it, you can just use Cleanup's graveyard effect to banish itself and then resummon show or any Dragonmaid you want. So it's an extender and an interrupt, so it's a follow-up and an interrupt in one, and it also gives you a +1. And then also downtime. This card is insane. Every single turn you get to return a Dragonmaid monster to your hand and then add a Dragonmaid card to your hand. That's a +1 every single turn. In fact, it's really like a +2 because the monster you bounce gets to summon itself, and every Dragonmaid on summons a +1 because not only do you get their effect to add a card or dump, then you get to bounce them back to your hand to summon a dragon. So really this card snowballs a lot. This is how you outpace Eldritch, you outpace Altergeist, you outpace Shaddolls. Any deck that can grind, you outpace Shaddolls every single turn, because it's a trap. Is everything you and you bounce back from if you get trapped advantage. You just on in phase bounce back row. Your Dragonmaid's hand. That's why this card's really good against back row decks, and it's really good for the grind. So I love this card. Super Big Brain is really good because this card lets you dodge targeting effects. Your opponent's like, I chain Ghost Ogre, I chain Gamma, I chain Forbidden Droplets, I chain Infinite Impermanence, I chain Warlord Savage, I chain Arclight. You know, you're like, change downtime. The card you're trying to negate or interact with, I return it to my hand, and then I get to basically add a Dragonmaid card to hand. You can add Earnest, discard Earnest, summon another. This card just does so much. It's ridiculously good. So once you have downtime and welcome set up, every single turn you're gonna get so many pluses. Add from grave to hand, add from deck to hand, and also keep in mind that cleanup and downtime do play around Mystic Mind. How 3 stacks? Because not only do they bounce spells or traps, but also these let you clear your monsters from your zone so that you have no monsters. So they can do both ways to play around Mystic Mind. So these cards are insanity. Also keep in mind that when you have house face up, like you guys, this triggers house. She's not even once per turn to pop, so house becomes insanity when you have basically downtime, cleanup, and when you're using changeovers effect to bounce. You know, you already trigger house off the Dragonmaid's effects and battle phase, but just change over to bounce, house to pop. Now you're like, activate downtime to search, house to pop. Effect of cleanup to bounce, house to pop. So you get so many pops off of house just by playing these cards. And I've seen Dragonmaid lists, even ones that don't play guard dragons, don't play like rockets, they still don't play these cards. They don't. They just play changeover and hospitality. That's what I see a lot. These cards are insane, and they give you more fuel and ammunition for house to be like a machine gun. Now she's just like pop, 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 pop. And she's not, read her, she is not once per turn. And also keep in mind, like, because she's not once per turn, like, you get to pop, like, I don't know how many cards off of her. She's just incredible, but she is a win effect. Also keep that in mind too. So after the main deck, now I'm playing 3 shows and 3 house. These are the best cards in the extra deck. They're really important to play. So like, these cards are just incredible, honestly. So with show, this card is a follow-up every single standby. This is how this deck really outpaces, that's what I'm saying, any deck in the grind. You have welcome, adding from grave to hand. Downtime, adding from deck to hand or bouncing. Cleanup, outing to, and keep in mind, both of these, when you activate their effects, you return a Dragonmaid to your hands. That's already a follow-up in itself, which is crazy. You can return them to hand. You know, you have another Dragonmaid, so you're like, especially on your opponent's turn, you return them to hand. You have another Dragonmaid there, like battle phase effect, bounce to summon a dragon. Then at the end of the battle phase, dragon effect, summon the card that you return to your hand off downtime or cleanup, get its effect. Just so much snowballing. Like, this deck's so good. I don't even know if anybody really does stuff like this, but like, I learned so much off this deck. Show's incredible. It's an Omni Negate plus a follow-up, and also the card it summons gives you more interrupts. So this card's just incredible. House is broken, you guys. Honestly, you know, every standby you get to recur, but her effect that makes her so broken because she's not once per turn. And keep in mind, because like, okay, so like, when you target, the target's for cost, for downtime. Thank God the bounce is not for cost. So guess what? When you return it to hand, like add, because it's all one effect, think of it like a True King. So like with True Kings, when you destroy a Yang Zing off a True King, even though multiple things happen, after that effect resolves, the last thing that happened was the card being destroyed, because that effect resolves. So like the same thing with like downtime and cleanup, you know, you're bouncing. So it triggers house, which is broken. She's just crazy, you guys. And then if your opponent's trying to OTK you, start a battle phase, effect, bounce, pop. Effect, bounce, pop. Effect, bounce, pop. And then in the battle phase, bounce, bounce, pop, pop. Like, this card is not once per turn, it's broken. So then we play Unicorn, Phoenix. Crossgrove is honestly here because it's really, really helpful for when you're trying to resolve both Elfie and Pisty. A lot of the times, I find myself only resolving LP. Sometimes I don't even use Pisty at all. But like, to be able to resolve both LP and Pisty, Crossgrove really helps. And then I play 2 Heretics. This card is insane in this deck because it's an interrupt plus a follow-up in one. You can even, you guys see I cite the Amorphage, you can cite summon it off guard dragons or heretic. You catch your opponent off guard, you'll be able to bounce a card, then lock them out their extra deck. They try to go in a battle phase. That's where your Amorphage lock is really broken in this deck, because they're like, oh, I have to, you know, go to battle phase, because they really, it's hard to out this when you can't use your extra deck and you have negates plus, you know, other interruptions. So then they go to battle phase to attack over it because it's 0 attack. You're like, start a battle phase. Dragonmaid tag out. House effect to pop. Dragon Maid tag out, house effect to pop. Now you can't out Goliath, you're locked out of the like your extra deck, like you just can't play Yu-Gi-Oh! If you ever want to turn Goliath off, keep in mind he's a dragon. You can bounce him off of cleanup. If that wasn't good enough, you could just tribute summon for him over here with your big Dragon Maids. So you can out your own Amorphage Loft. So Heretic is just insane. This card, even when you have weaker hands, you get hand trapped too much and you can summon this. This card snowballs out of control because you could use it to summon Nurse, Nurse effect to summon Parlor, Parlor effect to dump Cleanup, Cleanup to summon Chamber. All that happens off of one Heretic with a good setup. And then I play the Guard Dragon. Striker is just a dragon that you can link it to for free so that you can do the Chamber 1-card combo when you have a weaker hand. Chamber, search Hospitality, link off into Striker because you don't want to burn your Guard Dragons. Link off into Striker, activate Hospitality, you know, summon Chamber, and then basically link her and the Striker into Heretic. And then the All Mirage for the combos. Then I side 3 Nibiru's. Nobody's playing around this. I think it's still good. Especially in for Noble Knights don't get to play through this every time. They don't always have access to the Gear Freed. This is still good against Dragon Link. You just have to wait. Be really patient about when you Nibiru them. You know, if you see they have the ability to summon Arclight, you have to Nibiru them. With, you know, Adamant, they're probably the best combo deck to play through Nibiru, so you don't, it's risky. Then I side Kaiju's for the Buster Lock in case I'm locked out of my extra deck. You know, I just Kaiju them. Lightning Storm and Evenly covers combo and back row respectively. And a Pointer in case my opponent tries to side deck anything against me that really could be like a Haymaker. So I explained so much, so the title of this video is going to be How to Play Dragon Maid's In-Depth Deck Profile. You guys, I covered a lot of ground with this deck. I feel like after watching this video, you will be a really good Dragon Maid player. Because if you just take notes on what I was talking about, you will learn how to really be able to get so much off of this deck. This is a really, really good deck. Honestly, I really enjoy this a lot, and as you guys see, my certain card choices that a lot of people don't play, you guys are probably going to respect them now after this, and you're going to want to play pure Dragon Maid with this cards, and like just this insanity. Like, it's so good. Like, this deck is so busted. It's really hard to OTK, and you always have follow-ups. You have so many follow-ups coming from everywhere. You will have like 8, 9, 10 cards in hand if you play it right. Welcome, add, you know, cleanup, add, downtime, bounce, and add, which is crazy. Like, it's just crazy. And then changeover, add, and then start a battle phase, effect, bounce, effect, bounce. You get so many cards back to your hand, it's really hard for your opponent to stop you. You can outgrind Megaliths, Eldritch, you know, Altergeist, Shaddolls, like, and I know those decks are really good at grinding, Salamangreats, because your recursion, this deck, honestly, I didn't even know about this deck before like that. I personally believe this deck probably has the best level of recursion in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's just, I feel like, yeah, you could say it's biased, but when you really know how to play this deck and you use the cards the way I was explaining it, you get too many cards to hand, and every time you're getting cards to hand, you're swarming the field at the same time. And when you swarm the field, guess what? You're triggering effects to search and add more cards to hand. Then at the start of the battle phase, you're adding more cards to hand. It's just crazy. Oh my goodness, this deck's so broken. Yeah, you guys, definitely give this deck a try. It's so good. It's so good. You say that Dragon Maids are bad, you just either have never played it, or when you played it, you didn't know how to play it. Peace out, you guys. I'm going to say a quick prayer and I'll be out. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, Jesus. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth, just as it is in heaven. Please give us this day our daily bread, Lord, and please forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, Father, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the glory, and the power, forever. In the mighty name of Jesus I pray. Hallelujah. Amen. Don't forget anything I shared with you guys. Really important. Really, really powerful. You know, I was just talking about that. Like, it's really important to understand these. Take notes. The fact that just in mid to late game, top decking Chamber, you know, even her effect gets Borload Savage. You know, just being able to go in battle phase, effect to summon Show. Return her to your hand, summon Show. Standby phase, effective Show. Summon something from graveyard. You just start snowballing. Off of one Chamber can get you a negate plus multiple follow-ups. You guys understand what I'm saying? One Hospitality. One, like, this deck's so good even in top decking. Top deck any Dragon Maid that can be normal summon. Any Hospitality. Any Guard Dragon. You know, like any, like, one of those cards, top decking, you just start snowballing again. You can get your board broken over and over and over and over again and keep remaking the same board. You never run out of Dragon Maid extra deck cards if you play my build, because Welcome recycles your fusions, as well as Cleanup recycling your fusions, as well as Downtime recycling your fusions. How? Because they bounce them back to the extra deck. You won't resolve Downtime's effect because it doesn't get added to your hand, but you can still bounce, which is important, but you won't resolve its effects. With cleanup, you will resolve it. With downtime, you're recurring, so you don't run out of anything. Like, the only thing that can happen is if you deck out. That's the only way, but you'll never burn out of your grind. You can grind forever with this deck until your deck hits 0 cards. That's amazing. That's so broken. So peace out, you guys. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. I love this deck. I really want to build it in life. Every time I find out decks, like, you know, like decks that I enjoy, I end up finding so much. Like with Prank Kids, you guys have learned so much from me with Prank Kids because I love that deck. Plunder Patrol, Shaddolls, Altergeist, you guys have learned so much about those decks with me because once I enjoy a deck, I learn so much about it. Even with the names, I catch little things like that. That's just me as a duelist and also as a deck builder. That's just me though, but you know, not like toot my own horn, but honestly, I really hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you guys learned. This is probably, in my opinion, one of the most like informative and entertaining DRAGONMAID deck profiles ever. They're all cuties except Chamber. I don't know, she's a little too dark. Peace out, you guys.